Hey folks, so today we're continuing to take a look at this track um, in order to show you the next stages of the creative process after splurging, because splurging is just the first stage. Splurging isn't everything. Splurging is just a way of getting started. I think it's actually the best way of getting started and actually finding your best ideas and also training yourself in making better music by increasing your awareness of what you're actually doing in the process. But while you can actually splurge entire tracks out, and in fact the automatic music machine in its first its first incarnation was my answer to a kind of impossible question I asked myself a few years ago when I was just coaching people. And I wasn't actually making music myself, but I was coaching a lot of people every single week. And I was like, what would the situation have to be? How could I help them only work on music that came out really quickly and them still make eye-watering amounts of music? And that's where the automatic music machine in its first incarnation came from. But then and it was great. I mean, it really worked. People were making much more music. It was much better because there were just those tracks which just come out much more easily than others, and they tend to be much better. So basically how you do it, the short version is you just increase the quantity of music you're making, because then it's like rolling the dice, essentially. You're more likely, if you want to get a 6 more often, how do you do that? By rolling the dice more often. Okay. But that was working. But then as I was continuing to do this, so I'm just stopping my Dropbox from updating. Yeah, as I was continuing to coach people, I was like, yeah, but there are also those tracks, the difficult children, if you like, but which are fun to finish because, as long as you don't get yourself all frustrated and annoyed, are fun to finish, but also where you learn, you really learn something. And it's like solving a problem. And, you don't just want to ignore that music because, number one, to a certain extent, you'll be stunting your growth. And number two, you're actually kind of removing not an essential necessary part, but you're removing a part of the creative process that I certainly always found very fun, which is how do I develop this idea, which is, I don't quite know what it is, but I know it's something. Yeah, so it doesn't just come out automatically. Yeah, so you've got these two different kinds of ideas that sort of happen. And that is where the sort of development of the automatic music machine kind of continued. So in its first instance, really, splurging, you could say that splurging was the whole banana. This was years ago now. And now it's not the whole banana. It's just something that you can do. And it is very exhilarating to complete an entire track, just like that, boom, which it does happen the more that you splurge. But that isn't everything. And the majority of the time, it might not be the majority of music you make, depending on the kind of music you make and the kind of creator you are, the kind of person you are. The majority of time you probably won't spend on the music that comes out really fast, because it comes out really fast, right? But for one thing, by using splurging and the automatic music machine, you're not cutting off those tracks that come out really fast and telling yourself that they're bad because they came out really fast. Because this is something that I've noticed a lot, is that people make a mistake in that because they don't know how good their music is, and they intuitively know that they don't know how good their music is, they use a different measure to try and decide how good it is, and that is how hard I've worked on it. But how hard you've worked on it is only vaguely correlated to how good it is. In fact, it's often very opposite. The more, often the harder you work on something, the worse it gets, as I'm sure you've noticed. Um, so really, the automatic music machine is the solution to all of these problems. It allows you to finish, certain tracks that want to just come out very quickly, and it also allows you to work on tracks without getting bored. I mean, you do get bored, but you get bored a lot less because of the way the system works. We work on multiple pieces of music at the same time using a specific system in order to improve them and improve them and improve them for as long as it takes. I could work on the same piece of music over years, right, and still have an enormous amount of output coming out and not get bored of it. Imagine that, right? So you're not zeroing in on one specific track because I'm working on 20. I'm doing things slightly differently now because because I, of the way that I'm making music without a DAW and, the live stuff and everything. But I will be, as I am, this is the first one I'm doing it with, I will be taking some tracks and starting to automatic music machine them out of these live streams. But before I kind of moved to DAWless, I was working on, 20 tracks, and there wasn't any massive, while speed is always important in the process, there wasn't any rush for me to finish any of those tracks because of the automatic music machine. There was always music popping out of the end, even though there were certain tracks which I was coming back to and coming back to and coming back to. Yeah, because in the automatic music machine, there's a difference between clock time and calendar time. Okay. And clock time is the time you actually spend working on the music. And calendar time is the time you spend working on the music when you're not working on the music. Now, I know that might sound a bit, ooh, what on earth is he talking about? But the time that you spend, that you don't spend working on the music, if it is still in the machine, your mind is still working on it without you knowing it. And this is one of the reasons it's called the automatic music machine, because sometimes it feels like it's magic. It's like it's automatic. It's not magic. It's not automatic. But basically, your mind, your conscious processing, what you think is you, and what you think does everything and decides everything is just a very small part of what is actually going on. Do you beat your own heart? I don't think I do, no. Do you consciously digest, do you consciously digest your own food? No. Similarly, you are not you are, you, depending on what you mean by you, but what you think is you, this thinker in here, do you actually make all the decisions that you make? No. Often you notice the decisions that are made by your unconscious processing. Right? So actually working on the track, is only one of the ways you work on the track. I know that sounds like woo, but it's actually the truth. It's how it works. So, and I'm not going to get into the sort of the deeper levels of this, where I talk about the different levels of conscious processing, because it's all a bit much. But basically, so I've split it into very, very basic, conscious and unconscious. And working on a piece of music at a time, or listening to a piece of music at a time, or thinking about a piece of music at a time, you are consciously working on that piece of music. But what you're not conscious of in that moment is other music, if you've got an automatic music machine, which is in your automatic music machine, and you're still working on that. You're still working on it when you're asleep. So by working on multiple tracks at the same time, you're actually leveraging both your unconscious and your conscious processing. Right? Because if you don't have an automatic music machine, what ends up happening is that the music that you're not working on at any given time falls out of your middle level of unconscious processing into sort of just memory, and you forget about it completely. Yeah. In which case your mind isn't really working. It may well be in a sense, but it's kind of like you can't really, it's not the same. So by having multiple pieces of music that you're working on, you can be moving lots of music forward. Yeah. And essentially that, that's what this is all about. Think about the difference between before Henry Ford came along and invented mass production and the increases in productivity and quality that mass production, meant having a factory for cars, compared to, 10 people making one car at the same time, and finishing it and then moving on to the next one. That's the difference we're talking about. So hello XZCHC, hello MR, hello Safe, hello Elvis, hello Waterone, hello Rob. So Waterone says, oh man, yes, sometimes I have a nice base idea, but I'm scared of doing with it to ruin it, so it just ends up being a loop and that's it. The splurging has helped. Still there is still a few. Yeah, so about that, being scared of fear of ruining a good idea. Again, you don't need to be afraid of ruining a good idea, because what you do is you save the thing as you initially have it. You do a session, so you save it something else. You do a session, and then you export it, and you don't listen to it. And then you listen back to it, and if you go, oh no, I'm not into that, after listening to it, well, then you can listen back to the original and go, okay, well, the original was better. I'll start from there again. Or probably more usefully, you can go, okay, so I don't like what I did to it, but is there anything there that was good, that did move it forward? You keep that, and you get rid of the rest that you've changed, and then you move forward. There is really no benefit in going round and round in circles. And remember, I know, Ottawa, you did the turbo track attack. Just leave the loop. Just if you have a problem getting, finding yourself constantly in loopitis, as I call it, just don't use the loop. Immediately arrange it. I show you it in the I do explosion challenge as well. Just immediately start arranging it. Because the thing is, when it's in a loop, you hear it as a loop, and the more you hear it as a loop, the more you can't hear it as anything else. So just immediately arrange it onto a screen. That's a way through that. I'm not saying everyone always has to do that. It depends what situation you're in. But if you're constantly making loads of loops, then just don't make loops. Make little pieces of music. Okay, so let's move on to what's going on here. Now, this is actually a very simple piece of music, and it's a good thing to use in a sense, in that it's a simple piece of music, so I can talk about the concepts without getting too confused with thousands of different things. But in another sense, and by the way, what I'm doing here is I'm moving some windows around, which you won't be able to see. So I'll move this over here, and this over here. But in a sense, it's a bad piece of music because it's so simple. I can't really show you, all of the things. But really, what I'm trying to do, all of the various different things that you can do. But really, what I'm trying to do is to give you the concepts, the ideas, the different stages of the creative process. So we've got the splurge, where we just come up with an idea without worrying about quality. Then we've got the next stage is discovery. Where when we figure out and actually put into place what is the purpose of this track. How is the music going to serve the purpose of the track? And that's what we've been doing. And the purpose of this particular track is to describe. It starts out where those times when you have a fond memory of something, you can't really remember it. Oh, yeah, you remember that time when we did that? Oh, yeah, that was brilliant. What was it? Where were we? Who were we with? Oh man, that meal was amazing, and the sunset was incredible. Those kinds of, that sort of remembering, that sort of nostalgia, if you like. And then through the track, the increasing pain that you're. It's like a period of your life. If you're not my age, then you probably won't be so familiar with this. But you will be if you really enjoyed school or something. But a period of your life that can no longer be. It's gone forever. And this increasing sort of suffering or pain that it's no longer, and then ending in an acceptance or kind of gratitude that actually, even though it's very painful, I'm glad it happened, and I'm very grateful that it happened, and it kind of turned, it's one of the things that turned me into the person I am now. So that's the that was what I kind of decided could be the purpose of this track. And then last time we went through some different things in order to increase that purpose. I mean, it kind of already fulfilled that purpose in this case, and sometimes that will happen immediately after a splurge. But I just showed you about listening to the track outside of the creative process, deciding what to do, and then doing it. And that's really a discover session. So I haven't listened to this yet. But what am I doing? Where is it? What I'm going to do... Is it here? That's it. Is we're going to listen to the... Actually, let's listen to the... We're going to listen to the MP3. Actually, let me put it into my music. Okay. So just to be clear, when we listen to what we've done... Oh, crikey, what's happened there? Get rid of that. When we listen to what we've done, we do not listen out of the DAW. Yeah, we do not do that. It's very important. We listen to the export, the bounce. Oh yeah, and one other thing to say about this is I muted the piano, the original piano in this. Yeah, so I'm going to listen to it on the understanding that there is going to be an original piano, and all you can hear, there is going to be an original piano, because basically what I did was I had... This was the original piano, and then I played in this extra part here. So really what I'm listening to is how these two parts are working here. And I didn't bother to mute this piano here. So you'll just hear the effect of this piano up until this point, and then an actual piano will come in. But I'm not too worried about that because I'm able to listen past that. I can imagine what it's going to be like, so it's absolutely fine. Okay. So. It's actually quite nice through that, isn't it? It makes you think of a fond memory. It's in the past. Ha! There you go. Now there's a mistake. Huh. So right now I'm direct listening. I got a little bit distracted by the new idea there. Okay, but I'm just direct listening, just listening to it without judgment. What that means is you will have judgments, but you don't get on that. You don't then think about the judgments. So you just watch them go past, because you'll have different judgments as the music goes through. So you're constantly refocusing on the music. Sorry about that. I ate a mint, and I wanted to mute it so that you could, so you wouldn't have to hear me sucking away on a mint, because I got one of these microphones. So yeah, apologies. Yes. So in the original, last time I put in this part here. So in order, because the original Splurge, which happened in a live stream called Feistal Construction, it's a very strange name. Anyway, it just had this live piano. This was me actually playing over the top of these things, yeah. And last time in the last session, after making a list of things to try in order to enhance this purpose, to serve the purpose better, I put in this part here, yeah, this piano part here. I just played it in. Okay, and basically the notes that I played were based upon a harmonic thing where basically I was sticking on a note at the end here, and I think it was the E flat or something. I can't remember actually, but anyway, in order to kind of increase the tension, the pain, and then also I added in a this part here, the meta thing. You've probably heard that come in. Yeah. Now, in order to just bounce it out as quickly as possible, I muted the original piano part. Now, what was really super interesting about that was, I muted the original piano part and I was like, I'll be able to hear past it. But when I heard it just then, I was like, well, that's actually a really, really good way of starting it, is to have the piano, the original piano, just because it's just the effects on the piano you can hear. Yeah, which actually is another metaphor for that memory you can't quite remember. So as you know, over this section, what I can do, in fact, I'm going to make a list. I'm not going to do it right now, so because I'm going to following the the automatic music machine rather than I'm going to make. Sorry, you're not seeing the screen, are you? There we go. So, right, let's be more organized about this. What I need to do right now is I need to decide, is it good enough to move on to the next stage? Okay, do I move it to draft? Okay, because Discover is about knowing what the purpose is and having the essential elements in place to serve that purpose. Yeah, because once you've got that, it's ready for drafting. Yeah. And what drafting is basically, a way of putting it is arranging the music. Yeah, I mean, mine's already arranged, so it's a little bit confusing in this case, yes. But it's about in discovery, you're focusing on serving the purpose. What's the purpose, and how am I going to serve it with the music? Yeah. In draft, you're focused on the shape of the music. Yeah, how it's going to get to the place it's going to get to. Yeah, so you've got the essential elements in place, and now you're actually focused on, to be really simple about it, I mean, it's kind of more than this, but it's the arrangement. It's about how writing a draft, making a draft of the thing. So obviously, in a sense, I mean, it doesn't always work like this. It's not always linear, but that's okay, because at least you know what you're meant to be focused on. So as you can see, in my Discover session, I was really just focused on what was happening. And there was already a when, yeah, but they wouldn't have to be. Yeah, I could just have the two sections. Yeah, so I was really focused on what was happening. And so now the question I have after listening through to that is like, right, is this ready for drafting? And it definitely is. It's certainly ready for drafting. I mean, it already is a draft in a sense in this case, which is why it's a bad example. It's a good example in other ways though, because now you can see. Yeah, so it is ready for drafting, because really now my focus, I think I've got enough there in order to be able to actually kind of knock this into some kind of a shape. Okay, so now and again, the question, is it good enough? Well, let me ask you a question. When you're making a decision, when you're making any decision, like let's say it's an important decision, a big decision, what do you think like, what do you think the optimal time is to stop and make the decision? Yeah, so you've got a lot of different options. What do you think? And what do you think is the best? You know, how long? How many options do you think you should go through? Let's say that there are potentially, and I know this isn't reality, but let's say there are potentially 10 different things that you could do. Yeah. What do you think the optimal number of things to try is before you make the decision? Post in the chat. Say that, and I know it doesn't work like this, but we're just doing a little thought experiment, okay? So you've got a really important decision to make, and there are 10 different things that you could do. How many of them do you want to try? What's the optimal number of things of them to try before making the decision? Take a guess. So it can be anything from 1 to 10. I'll just answer this question. So safe, no, let's go. Safe now says 3 to 5. Rob says at least 5. Any other guesses? 1 says 3 McNuggets. Any other guesses? At least 1. Yes. At least 1. Anyone else? Come on. There's no harm in guessing. Rob, that's not a guess. More than 1, less than 10. Okay. As soon as I am content with it, about 50%. If it's vital, then 10, says Rob. Anyone else? Come on, there's no harm in this. Yeah. Kev, 3. IL, if yes, then one, and iterate. Well, yeah, I mean, again, it's about when do you stop? When do you go with what there is? Yeah. When do you start iterating? Yeah. MR 6, XZCHC 5. Okay. So probably the right answer. And this actually comes from computer science, is 3.7. And I don't know if this is the right answer, because obviously, but this is the optimal stopping problem. Okay. Now, if you're wondering why the way that I do things is so different from everyone else in the music making space, it's because the approach that I take is I look everywhere. I look at every subject I can think of. I just follow my curiosity and read wildly in all sorts of different subjects. Astronomy, physics, computer science, spirituality, marketing, business, sports. I'm reading a book about shipping containers at the moment, the development of the shipping container, believe it or not. What else? Psychology, neuroscience. It's like, absolutely, I'm a voracious reader and listener of books, and reader of books. And essentially, because the reason that I do that is that we now have the world's wisdom available to us in our pockets. Yeah, literally, the world's greatest minds is now available in literature, art, dance, music as well. We've got that available to us in our pockets, and it makes no sense to me to silo ourselves into one small thing. There's this idea that in order to be the best, that you must just 100% focus on these tiny little areas. That's absolutely, I think that's a terrible thing to do. Of course, you do have to spend time focusing on an area, but in order to get better at that area, you want to actually broaden your interests and broaden what you know about what. And so that's a lot of where the automatic music machine comes from. It's a combination of stuff I've learned from about software engineering and also psychology, how the human mind works, spirituality. I mean, all of the things I've just said are in the automatic music machine. So the reason I'm talking about computer science now is because essentially this isn't true, and I'm sure some computer science majors would argue with me about this, but let me just say it anyway, because being an armchair computer scientist who can't write a line of code. Well, actually, no, I can write a bit of code, but not I'm terrible. So, but it is really computer science is about how you make decisions, like how to tell a computer to make decisions. Yeah, and there's this problem called the optimal stopping problem. It's like what is the optimal number of things to try before you go, okay, now I have it, because you need a certain amount of information about what the options are in order to make the decision, right? But if, for instance, if you're buying a house, how many houses do you look at in order to know what's out there and in order to know what you want before, without actually making the decision, before you just go for it? Yeah. This is the optimal stopping problem. And apparently the number is way less than 10. In fact, if it's really important, you do not want to say it's 10. That's actually worse than 1. It's not 1 because you don't have enough information yet. Yeah. And by the way, this doesn't count with splurging. This is later on in the process. With splurging, you're just creating stuff. Yeah. Later on in the process, according to computer science, yeah, the optimal number is, and it's funny how the people who have done the most training with me are the closest, right? Which is Naif and Kev. It's actually 3.7, right? So if you have, and this is out of 10, and I know this is like a thought experiment, it's not the way that things actually work. So if you have tried around 3 or 4 things, you probably have enough information to go with whatever the best of either the best of those is or the next thing that happens. You have gained enough knowledge about the decision in order to move forward. And I've, since learning this ages ago, I have tried this over and over again, and it's what works. It's a really good rule of thumb. Of course, what's 3.7 mean? Yeah, but when I'm doing my Zentor stuff, yeah, it's like, because if you watch the Zentor stuff, it's like there are these sections where I'm discovering. Yeah, we've had a thing, which is a definite thing. Yeah, and then we're in a kind of, okay, so now it's broken down into this sort of thing, and I'm discovering. And usually I'm thinking about, well, I'm not really thinking about, it's kind of happening naturally. It's around 3 or 4 is the number of things that I'm trying before I just go, right, this one, or I'm going here. Yeah. So it's not 5, it's not 10, it's definitely not 10. Yeah. If you have an important decision to make, you don't want to be trying every possible option. That's actually not the optimal way to make a decision. And neither is 1 though. Yeah. So anyway, so when is it good enough? Right, is, well, you're going to have the amount of information that you need after you've tried 3 or 4 things. Yeah, and then you want to move forward. That's just a way of thinking about it. Yeah, and I don't mean go with what there is when you have 3 or 4, or go, well, what of those 3 and 4 is the best? I'm going to move forward. Or another option, I mean, I would prefer you go with that if you're constantly going around in circles, because then you're training yourself out of this thing. Yeah, but if you try 3 or 4, so if you constantly get stuck and you go really slow, try, let's say 3 things, and then just move forward, with whatever is the best of them. If you're not constantly getting stuck and you're good at sort of avoiding sort of tripping yourself up, try 3 or 4 things, and then at that point, the first thing that feels okay, go with that. Yeah, the first thing that is that not feels okay, the first thing that does the job, go with that, and then you can move forward. Because remember, you can always change it in a later session. Okay, so there are a lot of mistakes. So coming back to this track, there are a lot of mistakes in here, but this is definitely ready for drafting because I know the purpose, I know it's going to work, and I've got pretty much everything I need to make it happen. Okay, and it's good enough. Like, I'm not removing the mistakes because I don't need to. Yeah. I mean, just here, I just showed you a mistake of this being muted. Yeah, actually has led to something that will make the track much, much better. yeah, where I'm going to basically fade this piano in, yeah, because it was always a question, how am I going to put these two pianos together? Because a problem with the version as we heard just now is that the melody, you can't hear the melody at all the way through this. And we do want to make it a bit less just wall of sounding and a bit more kind of present, if you like. Okay, so just to be clear, I am now on to drafting. And I'm going to save this. Draft. And the reason it says 4 is because I did an extra session at the start showing how I got to the point. So drafting is actually the third stage of the creative process. And as I said, the point of drafting is you're really thinking about the shape and how the story is being told. Now, again, this is already kind of there, really, in terms of drafting. I mean, the shape, if I was to draw the shape, the tension shape, it's like, let me do that. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, through here. So it goes up, 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 up. I mean, you can see it right here, just in the effects. Yeah, up and then down like that. Okay. And I just thinking about it before I forget, wanted to answer a question. And I know this may well have been what's the word? What's the word when it's just a rhetorical question, AL? But I am actually going to answer it. How do you stay objective listening to that? It depends what you mean by objective. So I think and this is a really, really important point. This is why I wanted to answer it. If by objective you mean having no feelings or thoughts, then you don't, right? But what I mean by objective is knowing that they are feelings and thoughts, right? Because there's a difference between being in a thought and being in a feeling. So it's almost like you think they are you, yeah? And just seeing them as, there's a thought and there's a feeling and there's a leaf blower outside. Yeah, is a leaf blower you? Yeah, is that you? No. Is that true? Does that mean something? Does the leaf blower outside mean something that you need to act upon? I mean, maybe you need to close the window, right? But does it mean something? Well, no, it's just a leaf blower outside. Similarly, is a thought or a feeling, does it mean something? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, is it you? No, it's something that is happening to you. That is something that's coming into your consciousness. That's being objective. You're literally seeing the objects that are coming into your consciousness. Yeah, it's not that you're not having them. This is the mistake people make about meditation. They think it's about like removing all thoughts and having an experience. It's not. It's like literally experiencing what is happening as things happening, right? So how you stay objective is by maintaining that third-person observer view where you see thoughts and feelings of what they are, which is something that is just, it's a source of data. Yeah, it's something that is happening. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. So that's how you stay objective. Okay. So, first of all, Rob, still do 2 and 3 if 1 is perfect. Okay, so are you like some kind of superhuman musician? I've never done anything that is perfect, and I will never do anything that is perfect. No human being can do that. That's not possible. So let's just remove the word perfect. Yeah, still do 2 or 3 if 1 is good. No, I mean if you like what there is, because of course in the music process, having enough information, yeah, you may well have already have enough information to know if something is good enough. Yeah, makes sense. So, but just perfect, that's one word we don't say in this house. Okay, it's just a really you can't ever achieve perfection. If you did achieve perfection, everybody in the entire universe would have to agree that it was the best thing ever. Yeah. How come it doesn't feel, Free McDonald's, how come it doesn't feel natural to be objective in that way? Okay. So let me ask you a question, Free McNuggets. Let's say that you have a bad habit. Let's say, I'm not saying you do, but let's say you always pick your nose. Yeah. In that situation, I mean, you may well have a bad habit. So let's just pick a bad habit that you would like get rid of. It feels extremely natural to do that bad habit, doesn't it? And it feels extremely unnatural not to. Is that enough of an answer? Right? Just because something feels natural doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Yeah. When you're angry, it may well feel natural in that moment to punch someone in the face. Right? It's not the right thing to do. Yeah. So one of the reasons that it doesn't feel natural is that our culture, our society has put a massive overemphasis, because of the industrial age and what that required of human beings, has put a massive overemphasis on a certain way of thinking and looking at the world. Yeah. And that means that our brains have been trained to think in that way. Yeah. And we habitually think in that way. We're told that certain things are wrong and certain ways of looking at things are wrong and certain perspectives are wrong. We're told that if we make mistakes, then we're wrong. So that's what we learn, and so that becomes the truth. And so doing different things is no longer natural. Yeah. I mean, is it natural to constantly check your phone and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll? Is that, yeah, that probably feels natural, right? If you've been doing it a lot, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing to do. Yeah. So anyway, what feels natural is really just what you've done before a lot. Yeah. So, okay. So where was I? Draft. We're on to drafting. And funnily enough, I actually don't think I need to do an enormous amount of drafting with this, because it's kind of there. Because really, when you're drafting, what you're thinking about is what is the shape, the tension shape of this, or what does it want to be? Yeah. So if I just had two sections, one for 16 bars, another for 16 bars, then I would probably need to lay it out. Yeah, but I actually don't need to here. The drafting has already been done, and this is something that it was done actually in the initial thing. But this is the thing about the good thing about the automatic music machines. You don't have to if it's ready. This has gone straight from discover into done essentially. Yeah, because in done, what we do is we think about something different. We think about the space, that we're creating. Okay, so I mean, I could think of things to do in draft, but I don't think I'm going to, because I don't need to. So just to be clear, when you know what the purpose is and that you have essentially the parts, they don't have to be right, they don't have to be brilliant, they don't have to have no mistakes, they don't, nothing like that. Then it's ready for drafting. And what drafting is about laying out the thing so that you know where the sort of payoff is, what how the tension is going to increase. Yeah. And essentially we've already done that here. Okay. So the good news is I don't have to do anything in order to do a draft session. So I'm now going to move this into done. Yeah. And I'm going to click my done button here. So here you can see at the moment it's in discover. Yeah. And so that label shouldn't be there. That was a mistake. So it's in discover, and I'm going to click the done button, and it's going to magically move into done. Now, what you might be wondering is, well, hang on a minute. Done, isn't that finished? No, done isn't finished. Done is simply where we put it when we have a draft. Yeah, it's like a draft is done, and it's ready to decide whether we want to do the work in order to release it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I haven't shown you any drafting today, but we can do that on another track another time, because in the next session of these, I will actually show you a done session where the focus is on this, and the focus is on actually creating the space. Yeah, because really this bit where I was talking about, where this bit was muted, and you could hear the thing in the distance, that's a done thing. Yeah, and bringing this forward, coming forward like that, that's about creating the space. So before we finish and I go and get ready for my Zentor stream, are there any questions that anybody has about what we've been talking about? Are there any questions? Here we go. So XZCHC says, so this is 37% of all the options available. Okay, so no, not exactly. And this is where it's a bit confusing. Because you will never be able to, in order to know what all the options available are, you'd have to experience 100% of them. So that's not it. If you say to yourself, okay, I have, let's just take an example. It's just like a rule of thumb. If you say to yourself, I'm going to, I can't do it with, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on this. Yeah, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on this particular thing. 3 or 4 minutes in, it's time to make the decision to move on. Yeah, for instance. If you're buying a house and you would like to have made the decision in, oh God, I can't work this out. In 100 days, I'm just going to use 100. Yeah, in 100 days. You would like to have actually bought the thing in 100 days. Take the first month or so to just get the lay of the land without making a decision. Yeah, and then at that point, the first thing that comes along that is the one, that actually seems like a good one, go for it without hesitation. Another thing that you could do is to say, I'm going to try 3 things and then I'm going to move on to, with either of the best of those things or the next thing that's okay, or not the best, but the one that seems the best of the 3, and then I'm going to move on. I mean, I know it's imperfect, yeah, because we're not computers, yeah, but it's a good rule of thumb, yeah. Any other questions? No, okay. So so Rob says, does Discover include editing, or is that in draft? Well, it's not really. The only exception would be if it's so unutterably terrible that you can't hear past it. Right. Yeah, so let's say you put this part in and it's just like so out of time that you can't, it's just completely distracting. Well, then of course you could edit it there, but you don't need to. Like in this part here, there's lots of mistakes. I'll just play it to you. And here, yeah, there are mistakes. I haven't done anything to them because I don't need to do anything. Whoops, hang on. What's going on? I'm using my keyboard shortcuts from a different door. There we go. Yeah, so I don't need to have corrected these things in order to be able to move on to the next section. I just don't like here. You can hear some mistakes. Because at the end of the day, what's the purpose of Discover? What's the purpose of the discovery stage of the creative process? Post in the chat. I'm going to test you on your knowledge. What's the purpose of the discovery part of the process? I'll come to your question in a minute, Ferdinand. Post in the chat. What's the purpose of the discovery part of the process? What are we focused on? Rob says to build a picture of what it wants to be. Yeah, sort of. To focus on what the idea wants to be. To explore the purpose of the song. To discover different sections and passages that enhance the original idea. Kind of. It's to decide what the purpose could be and write the parts, stroke sections, that serve that purpose. Okay, now that may well be the case, because it often happens like this, that you've already got that in Splurge, like I did. Yep, so what I had in the Splurge, it was this. So essentially, I had the subharmonicon, I had the piano solo, and then I had those effects building up. Yeah. So that was what came out of the Splurge. Now, out of that Splurge, I said, okay, so this is about those times when you remember gradually a fond memory, and then you start to feel the pain that you're no longer experiencing that, and you can't. It's a different period of your life, and things have changed. You've got different responsibilities, and then ending on the acceptance or gratitude. Actually, I'm glad it happened. It's made me the person I am now. I'm really grateful it happened, and I accept that it's no longer the thing. Yeah, So, and that actually came out of what it already was. It may well for you, or it is sometimes for me not the case that you have that much out of a Splurge. At some point in the future, I'll do one where it's much less formed. Yeah, I wanted to do it with this one just to show you without boring you with actually kind of playing things in and everything of what the different things are, because it was already existing. Yeah. So in the Discover for me this time, what I decided to do was, well, how can I enhance this purpose that I've identified? Because remember, I just played this in without there being a purpose. Yeah, the purpose didn't come first. The purpose came second. Yeah, so I decided on a purpose. So then I put these parts in to enhance that purpose. But whether I have to put these parts in or not, essentially what the reason for discovery is you're discovering what the purpose is, and you are making the parts stroke sections, and you don't have to lay them out. Yeah, you can just have the sections. You're making the sections in order to serve that purpose. When you have that, you're ready for drafting. And what's the point of drafting? Testing your knowledge again. What's the point of drafting? Post in the chat. What is the purpose of drafting? There's a bit of a delay. What's the purpose of drafting? What are we focused on when we're drafting? Okay. Ricardo says, organize the different sections into a coherent hung. Rob, what does it want to be? Rob, have you been listening to anything I've been saying? Oh, dear. To build on the idea, says Otto1, to build on the discovery. XZCHT, further laying out the arc of tension. So the essentially the purpose, what we're doing in draft is we are determining what the arc is, how the tension and the release, the shape of the tension and release is. In other words, I mean, how we do that often is by arranging the thing. Yeah, but in this case, I've already got an arrangement. It was already there. Yeah, so I don't actually need to do any drafting because the tension shape is here. I mean, I could, if I wanted to, change it or make it sort of, so I could make it go sort of up and down here a bit. So it goes, like a kind of more of a sawtooth thing. But I actually think for this is the ideal shape for it already. So I don't actually have to do any drafting. It's already a draft. Yeah. And this is what I mean about understanding the stages of the creative process in a linear fashion doesn't mean that it's always linear. Yeah, it's just that you know what you're supposed to be focused on. Yeah, and I already have a tension shape, which is basically, it starts with zero tension and it builds and it builds and it builds more and more and more and more tension, and then it goes down to very little tension again, the acceptance. Yeah, because here, pain that it's no longer present, that is an increase in tension by definition. Yeah. So essentially, the drafting isn't about what does it want to be. Yeah. I mean, in a sense, it is about building on an idea. It is about building on discovery, but really, the point is creating tension, knowing what the shape of the track wants to be, in order to serve the purpose, yeah, which is what you identified in Discover. So in other words, for this, start with zero tension, build the tension through here, and then come down. I've already got that, so I don't need to do a drafting session. Make sense? Is that clear? Brilliant. So, let me just answer this question about direct listening from Ferdinand. I have a question. Does the listening technique, direct listening, that you teach in week 1 of the leap change with the task? For example, is discover or draft listening different to listening to splurges? Or do we also write down our thoughts in the end and never while listening? Or is anything else different? Okay, so direct listening is direct listening. It's not about writing things down. That's separate. So when you're direct listening, you're just listening. Yeah, you're not doing anything other than listening. Okay. So the writing things down thing, just separate that. Yeah, direct. I mean, there are different ways of direct listening. The one that I teach in the Idea Explosion, I think you're talking about the Idea Explosion Challenge program, because I don't think you're in the leap. So yeah, in the Idea Explosion Challenge program, the leap is very, very different. The leap is the whole system, whereas the Idea Explosion Challenge program is splurging, idea generation. Okay, so so direct listening, simply listening in a particular way. What we do with what we've learned from that listening, that's kind of separate to it. Okay, so I think the question that you're asking, though, is what do we do with the information that we have gained, or the data we have gained from the direct listening? Yeah. And yes, of course, what you do with that data is different. Yeah, but that doesn't change what you do when you're listening. You don't write things down when you're listening, because if you do that, while you are listening, because if you do that, then what are you listening to? You're listening to your thoughts. You're not listening to the music. Okay. So what you do is you listen, and you don't write anything down. You listen. You listen to the end, and you focus on it, and you notice your thoughts. Yeah. And then there's this amazing, I don't know if you've heard of it, there's this amazing thing that all of us can do with this grey matter in between our ears. It's got this amazing feature. It's called memory. And a memory is that you actually remember something that you thought. It's incredible. So you use your memory after you finish listening to write down various different things. And yes, at different stages of the creative process, you are focused on different things. So for instance, when you're listening to a splurge, really the question you're asking yourself is, do I want to work on this? Or do I want to, do I want to work on this now? Yeah. That's pretty much all you're listening to. Maybe if you're listening to it, so if you've just then decided, yes, I do want to work on this, and then you go, okay, so what, at that point you go, well, what could the purpose be? Yeah. And then you write, yeah. And then some ideas for your discovery session about what to do. If you're listening to a discover, like I just did there, then you listen to it. You don't write anything down. Listen to it, and then you think, okay, so what is this serving the purpose? Do I have the parts that serve the purpose, that actually serve the purpose of the track? If you do, then it's ready for drafting. When you're listening to a draft, you think, well, does this have a basic shape? Is the basic shape, that the tension of it, is that what I'm kind of shooting for? Yeah. Does that essential shape work? Not is every single thing, perfect, is because it never will be, but is it like, is everything edited? Does everything sound amazing? Yeah, all of this, does everything sound amazing stuff? Is it just like, it's not time for that yet. Yeah, at each stage of the creative process, you're focused on something else. It's almost like maximum results for minimum effort. That's what this is all about. Yeah, because if you try maximum effort for maximum results, you'll get minimum results. Yeah, so you're looking at the most important thing that you're focused on at each stage. So when you're listening to a draft, you're like, well, does this have a shape, and is that shape serving the purpose? Yeah, if it is, right, well, then it goes into done. So for instance, once again here, this is a shape that's serving the purpose. I mean, as I keep saying, yes, the creative, I've divided the creative process into a linear path, but in this case, it wasn't linear, but it still worked for me because I already had the shape, but I hadn't done these discover things down here. Yeah, doesn't matter. Okay, so when you're listening to a draft, you're thinking, does it have a shape? And does the shape serve the purpose? If the answer is no, well, then you've got to think of some things to do in order to make that happen. If the answer is yes, then it goes into done. So Ferdinand says, okay, got it, but my focus while listening doesn't change. No, I mean, because you're listening. Because if your focus while listening changes, then you're not listening. so yeah, it's almost like you've answered your own question. Yeah, you're listening to the music. Yeah, and you can, within the music and within your kind of awareness, you can focus on different things. But it's not. I mean, it's not thoughts exactly. It's not thoughts. It's what's happening. But what is confusing is your thoughts are included in that. Yeah, if you think about it, there are birds singing outside right now because the sun's coming up. Yeah, that's something that's happening. I'm having thoughts. That's something that's happening. I'm having comments coming in here. That's something that's happening. I'm having feelings. That's something that's happening. Yeah, I'm half sitting on this stool and noticing that now. That's something that's happening. There isn't music playing, but if there was, that would be something that's happening. So you're focused on all of these things happening rather than just being 100% focused on all of these judgments, yeah, which is just a tiny thing, tiny part of what is actually happening, if that makes sense. Okay, brilliant. All right, well, so next time, and I'm still in the process of planning out when I'm doing the various different live streams and everything. As of next week, there's going to be less of these live streams on this channel because I've got the Leap starting on Monday. Also, there's a new thing I'm starting with some leapers called Make Music Your Life Mastery. So that's going to take 2 of my mornings up a week. So there's going to be less of this, but I will still keep doing at least one a week. And in the next one, in fact, and I'm going to do another Ask Me Anything on Friday. On my Friday, that'll be your Thursday if you're not in Australia or New Zealand. But the next one of these, we will actually be doing a done session on this, which is really where we're thinking about the space. And what I mean by space, if you want to describe it like this, it's kind of the mixing-ish. Yeah, it's when I talk about space, it's like when I talk about each stage of the creative process, I don't like talking about, okay, so when you're drafting, you're arranging. Okay, when you're in done, you're mixing. Okay, when you're because that actually it's not always the case. For instance, like if you think that what you're doing is mixing, then that will stop you from doing things that might actually result in a better mix. Yeah, if you think what you're doing is like mixing something, then you'll end up just doing compression and EQ, when actually maybe what it needs is you need to remove a part, or maybe you need to rewrite a part, or maybe there needs to be a different part. So if I say to you, you're creating a space that allows in these other things that you can do, it becomes less linear. Yeah. So if you want sort of the thing that most people understand, we're going to be focusing on the mixing side of things. But in reality, what we're focused on is creating the spaces. Yeah, the spaces that is going to serve this purpose. Okay. So, excellent. All right, I was just checking to see if there was any other questions. So I'm going to go over onto my Mike Munn Daily channel and do a Zentor stream in about 40 minutes. So I might see some of you there for the after party. And if you're interested in the leap where you'll get the full automatic music machine, it's not just that either. It's also the magnet model, which is about how to build a secure and stable music business through the music that you're making. Then click the link in the description. We're starting on Monday. And I'm finalizing things at the end of this week, on Friday. And yeah, that's it for now. Hope you found this useful. XZC, short question. Will there be a next leap in roughly 3 months? Yeah, they're four times a year and they're roughly every 3 months. So the answer is yes. And I think this also answers your question. I won't be able to make this leap. Any possible idea when the next one would happen? In about 3. Yeah, so in about 3 months. It'll be around August time. Kev says, cheers, Mike. Very interesting session. Hopefully it was useful as well, not just interesting. Excellent. All right, folks. Good to see you. I will see you. As I said, it'll be an Ask Me Anything on my Friday, your Thursday, same time as usual. So, and then next week we'll do a done session on this. So, been great as ever. Keep making music, keep enjoying it. I know there's a lot I'm kind of introducing you to here, so it can be quite overwhelming, but it will just keep practicing. Bring a lightness of touch to it. You don't have to be so serious about everything. Sometimes I think, yeah, just enjoy the process. You'll learn so much more by doing that. And I will speak to you very soon. See you next time.